So Piers Morgan, being the ratings whore that he is, and I got to give him the credit. He's at least good at doing this. Whoever he has booking his shows, or if he's helping his booking, you got to give him all the credit in the world there, because Piers Morgan had Mehdi Hasan back on, except this time he had an ex-IDF chief, John Conricus. I don't know this guy, to be completely honest. All I know is that it's Mehdi Hasan, and he's debating against somebody from the IDF. So it was something that I'm really interested in taking a look at. I haven't watched this yet, so let's do a live react to it, because that's the best type of react, right? Yeah. Also, I'll be completely honest, I'm getting a little burnt out on Piers Morgan content, so I'm just glad that Mehdi's back here to ease me back into this.
Has ordered Israel to urgently boost aid to Gaza or face having some military assistance cut off. It comes after reports that Benjamin Netanyahu was considering a surrender or starve plan to choke off aid to the north, leaving hundreds of thousands without food or water to flush out Hamas terrorists. Israeli officials have told their US counterparts they won't enact that plan. But frankly, that's what they tend to say about most of their escalations just before they happen. In the past few days, 4 Israeli soldiers were killed, 58 more badly injured in a Hezbollah drone attack. The UN, meanwhile, has condemned a large number of civilian deaths caused by Israeli strikes, including one that hit a Gazan school. With the conflict now at its most dangerous juncture, I'm joined by 2 of the most accomplished advocates for their relative positions. Jonathan Conricus is a retired lieutenant colonel and international spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces. And Mehdi Hasan is editor and CEO of Zateo News. Well, welcome to both of you. Should be
and currently filming a Gap commercial.
Fascinating debate. I hope, unlike some of my debates on this, it doesn't descend into talking over each other and ad hominem too much, because I think you're both better than that. And I say that as a compliment.
I think he's talking about the debates that I've covered.
Having interviewed you both multiple times. But Mehdi, let me start with you about where you feel we are now. It seems to me that where we are is that Benjamin Netanyahu, having been very unpopular with Israeli people, following the attacks on Hezbollah, the pager attacks, and then following up with the strikes on Hezbollah leadership and so on, he's suddenly seen a massive spurt in his popularity, and that seems to have emboldened him now to potentially go for broke with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with the Houthis, and ultimately potentially with Iran directly. Is that your reading of this, and how dangerous is that as a moment for the world?
Well, they kind of use the 9/11 method. Get them really angry, then you get a bunch of nationalism, and then boom, you got a war.
Thanks, Piers. We're in a very dangerous moment for the world. Anyone who thinks otherwise is crazy. I've spoken to Middle East experts who say they've covered the region for decades and they've never seen it boiling like it is now. We could be on the verge of a much wider regional war than Israel has already created. And yes, Benjamin Netanyahu, anyone who follows Netanyahu's career, I think is well aware of the fact that he is a self-serving cynic. He, like Donald Trump, cares about himself more than he cares about his party or his people or his country. And we all know that he's carried on this war, partly, not only, but partly because he wants to stay out of prison himself. He wants to keep his far-right fascistic coalition together. And of course, escalating as we get closer to an American election helps him, because as even Joe Biden apparently has acknowledged in private, he's trying to get Donald Trump elected. So for Netanyahu, there's a wide...
Yet Joe Biden keeps capitulating to him. He doesn't even know what to do anymore. He's just like, I don't know. I committed to the Zionist thing, but oh no.
Variety of domestic political reasons that help him extend the war. As you say, people tend to rally around in times of war. When Iranian rockets or Hezbollah rockets are dropping on Israelis, of course, are going to rally around their government. That's only natural. That happens in every country in the world. So, of course, it helps Netanyahu. He's the ultimate cynic.
Yeah. Piers Morgan has literally said that they have the right to retaliate.
Jonathan Conricus, I mean, a lot of people think that. And it's hard not to deduce that that is what's driving him, not least because at the end of all this, Benjamin Netanyahu will face a moment of reckoning with the Israeli people for what happened on October the 7th, which many still blame him for in terms of a massive security failure on his watch. But also he's facing corruption charges, which have all been delayed pending resolution of the military conflicts. There's not really much incentive for him to bring any of this to an end, is there?
Yeah, never was a spokesperson for Netanyahu, and I certainly don't intend to be. And I think it's a bit flat to analyze everything happening in the Middle East only from Netanyahu's perspective and then dress everything up as if it is all related in some, mystical way, like the Elders of Zion type of thinking. I would offer, a different military way of looking at it. And when I see what Israel is doing, there's a lot of sense. For the first time in 11 months, or in a year after 11 months, Israel actually started gaining success against Hezbollah, and success leads to success. And when you succeed on the battlefield, you want to make sure that you exploit your enemy's weakness. That's what's happening now. I don't think that even Mehdi and other people can blame Israel for being attacked by Iran, or actually maybe Mehdi can, but I don't think that any reasonable person can say, well, Israel is at fault for Iran twice firing missiles on all over Israel. So what Israel is doing is defending itself against Iranian attacks, first and foremost Hamas, and Hamas is down but not out, and now dealing very lately, and after a long period of time of 70,000 Israelis being evacuated from their homes for 11 months, but dealing with Hezbollah as well. And I think that in the coming days, or maybe a little bit more than that, Israel will expand its defenses to the real destabilizing factor in the Middle East, which is Iran. And to put everything within the Netanyahu context, I think it's a bit, intellectually lazy and flat. There's so much more to it, and it really takes away agency and responsibility from all of the other actors that are attacking Israel.
What about, dude, you're taking it... You could say the same about you.
Gaza and Hezbollah and the Houthis and the Iranians and Iraqis and Syrians, all of these, they have no agency, they have no responsibility, they all are part of the Netanyahu show. I find that a bit hard to believe, and I think it's kind of a lazy argument to be making.
All right, Mehdi, your response to that?
Well, let's just deal with the agency issue first. A few things. One is, a lot of those groups you mentioned have all said that their fighting with Israel is tied to what's happening in Gaza. Many of them have offered the Houthis, Iran, and I said this to you peers last time I came on the show, and you said, how can we trust them? I said, don't trust them, but call their bluff. They've all said, you end the genocide in Gaza, you end the violence in Gaza, you get a ceasefire, and we will stop fighting with Israel.
Which genocide? The one that Hamas started on the 7th? The genocide that Hamas started on the 7th?
The genocide that your country's being investigated. Can I finish a sentence? The genocide that your country is being investigated for the International Court of Justice right now.
You know what's kind of funny? Yeah, Piers would have jumped in if it was Muhammad, or if it was I'm already forgetting his name, the rapper. Low key. If it was either of those guys, he would have jumped in right then.
As I was saying before, Jonathan, I'll let you respond after Mehdi finishes his point.
Yeah.
Mehdi.
I barely started, but he doesn't want people to hear what's going on. All of those groups have said they'll stop if Israel stops its genocide in Gaza. NBC News reported that Israel killed Nasrallah because he said, I'm only going to do a deal with you if you do a ceasefire in Gaza. I want to link a ceasefire in Lebanon with a ceasefire in Gaza. And the Israelis told NBC News that's why we killed him. So we know that these groups have agency. Israel has agency. Jonathan Conricus wants your viewers to believe that Israel just blindly, Israel was just minding its own business and Iran attacked it. Israel attacked Iran first. In Syria, they bombed an Iranian consulate in violation of the laws of international law and international diplomatic law. Yeah, they killed Iranians in Iran. They then bombed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. They bombed the Iranian capital. And then they bombed Beirut and killed a senior Iranian general. So actually, it was Israel that's been provoking. And when he talks about source of destabilization in the region, everyone in the region knows it's Israel that's destabilizing region. It's Israel right now that's escalating wars in multiple countries. Everyone around the world knows it's Israel that's the country that is causing the issues. 40 countries, Piers. 40 countries have just put out a statement on Saturday saying, can Israel please stop attacking UN peacekeepers, blue helmets? So please don't give us lectures on who is stabilizing, destabilizing the region. And final point, as for winning, the Israeli general who ran the Gaza division, Gadi Shamni, says Hamas is winning, Israel is losing in a big way. Those are his words, not my words.
Jonathan, your response?
Yeah, I just out of respect for you, Piers, I didn't interrupt the second time, even though Mehdi's statement was littered with so many lies that are in fact quite ridiculous.
As were yours.
Israel was indeed minding its own business. Israel was indeed minding its own business on the 6th of October when Hamas, with a genocidal intent, invaded into Israel and butchered Israeli civilians. Israel was also minding its own business along the Lebanese border.
Yeah, that's always the thing, is Israel just sitting here minding our own business for the longest time, and these mean Muslims just want to come and they just want to bomb us.
When on the 8th of October, Hezbollah started firing at Israeli civilians and military and eventually forced about 70,000 Israelis to flee their homes after many of them were killed. Israel was also minding its own business for many years.
You've
and has, as you are well aware, no, Mehdi, Mehdi, let's agree not to interrupt. I refrained from interrupting you. I refrained from interrupting you even.
No, you didn't. Only after you recalled on it, did he?
Though you said so many horrible and very flat lies, and I'll continue not interrupting you if you do the same. Right. And by the way, speaking about the region, Mehdi, I live in the region. My children are here. You do not. And I don't know how many people you know and see from both sides of these different conflicts. I know people from both sides and I speak with them and I live here. So I don't think that you're in a position to be lecturing anybody about what's really happening in the region. Okay. I am the one who is running with my family to bomb shelters when Hezbollah fires missiles and when the Iranians fire missiles and when Hamas fires missiles. I am the one who has family who has been evacuated from the north. I am the one who has close relatives and friends who were massacred on October the 7th. Don't lecture me about who is the source of instability. I agree with you that a lot of countries and a lot of dark people have a problem with the Jews living in their ancestral homeland. But that doesn't
What the fuck? Wow, that's
Doesn't make it wrong that we're here. We're going to continue to be here and continue to defend ourselves despite the likes of you and despite our enemies. And I'll tell you that our history is so full of people that wanted to kill Jews and wanted to force us out of our homeland. But we're back, we're here, and we intend to continue to stay here despite the best efforts of Iranians and Syrians and Lebanese and Gazans and others.
Mehdi.
I feel like his picture should just be replaced by a teddy bear with a Israeli flag on it, because that's what he's trying to portray himself as.
So I do need to respond to that. So first of all, as for lecturing you, as I say, 40 countries put out a statement, including many of your own allies, including Hungary, one of the most pro-Israeli countries in Europe, saying stop attacking UN peacekeepers. These are not dark anti-Semitic forces. You can't keep playing an anti-Semitism card and undermining the very real struggle against anti-Semitism by using it to defend a government that is full of some of the most racist people, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, anti-Christian people on the face of this planet. You were spokesman for a government that contains people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, open racists, prosecuted for inciting terrorism. So
yeah, the fact that that Ben-Gvir is still in the cabinet, come on.
What about lectures? You should keep your lectures to yourself and be embarrassed for the government you served.
And that's also after him and Bibi, or Benjamin Netanyahu. I call him Bibi just because it's easier. I know that people are like, quit using his pet name. It's like, whatever. It's easier to say than just fucking Netanyahu all the time.
That's so you living in the region. The problem is not you living in the region. The problem is the army you serve and the country you were a spokesman for illegally occupies other people's lands in the West Bank, in Gaza, in the Golan Heights, now in the Golan Heights, Lebanon again. You are the country that is illegally occupying other people's lands. It's not about you living.
Yeah, and then they go to say like, oh well, there were Israeli citizens there. It's like illegally. It was an illegal settlement
in your homes. It's about you taking other people's homes. It's about Israel now aiming to annex Gaza. According.
And Israel can't do anything bad. Look at this Lou Ferrigno looking mofo. Like, come on.
Haaretz this week that Netanyahu no longer has any interest in saving the hostages, as he never did, and is eyeing annexation.
Sorry, I'm trying to swear less.
Of Gaza, to quote the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. And if we're going to talk about people dying on October the 7th, some of us have condemned that. Some of us oppose that. You only oppose attacks on Israel. You support attacks on non-Israelis. On Monday, let's say his name. Shaban Ahmed, 19 years old. No. You don't get to interrupt me. Sorry, you do not get to interrupt me. You have to get taking the high ground on interruptions. You'll come back in. Piers will bring you back in. I'm going to finish my point uninterrupted. Otherwise, don't be a hypocrite, as well as someone who represents fascists. A 19-year-old young man, Shaban Ahmed, was a software engineering student. Can I finish my sentence, Piers, or is it going to be one way?
Jonathan, just wait, Jonathan. I will bring you.
Piers, you can't tell me not to interrupt. Otherwise, this conversation will.
No, Mehdi, finish your point, and I'll bring Jonathan in.
Oh, please don't threaten us, Mehdi.
Don't worry, Piers. I will.
So desperately.
Okay, Mehdi, finish your point.
A 19-year-old. You keep interrupting, Jonathan. People can see what a hypocrite you are. 19-year-old student, Shaban Ahmed, software engineering student at Al-Azhar University. Jonathan's military destroyed his university, destroyed his house, displaced him, made him homeless 5 times over the past year. On Monday, the world, we all watched him burn to death, thanks to Israelis bombing the area outside the hospital. He was on an IV, on a bed, in a tent. He burned to death. His mother died. 2 maybe 3 other people died.
It was horrendous, and I got to give CNN a little bit of credit here because they showed the entire thing. They didn't blur any of it. It was a lot.
I'm not sure how Jonathan still comes on these shows and defends that kind of barbarism.
No, it's absolutely disgusting.
And open war crimes. I'm not sure how Jonathan sleeps at night watching people burn to death.
No.
Thanks to
because he doesn't search that out. He does. I mean, to be fair, I don't actually condone just like going and searching out war porn. Essentially, like, is because you're not doing yourself any good. You're not doing literally being aware of the genocide is good. And also saying some of that imagery, like, again, what I caught on CNN was just enough for me to reevaluate and just go, yeah, guys, there's no excuse for this at all. And this idea that you're still able to try and rewrite the history, rewrite not even the history, rewrite the facts of what's going on, and also try and this guy is so bad that I would not be surprised if he tried to say that kid was a combatant.
To the military that he served and is now being investigated both at the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court.
Jonathan?
Yeah, speaking about serving, and then I'll address the points that you've mentioned. Speaking about serving and standing up for something, I indeed served for 24 years in the IDF, and I'm a proud Israeli Zionist, and I'm a proud Israeli patriot. And I also am very proud of my service, including as a spokesperson, but also including as a combat officer in the IDF. I know what I stand for. I'm asking, what do you stand for? What kind of values do you stand for?
I don't stand for killing civilians like your military.
There's
No, of course
raping
not.
detainees like your military did.
You'll get to answer.
Well, Jonathan, did you witness rape? You
You'll
were a
get to
competent
answer,
officer.
Mehdi.
Did you
You'll
witness
get
the rape
to
of
answer.
detainees?
Mehdi, you will get
You asked
to
me a
answer.
question.
Mehdi, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Don't ask me questions if you don't want to
I
answer.
stand for a country that
I
is
mean, to be fair, like if you're gonna ask a question, expect an answer from the person you asked the question of. And like this isn't a presidential debate where you just go back and forth with your time. There are certain areas here that it's like, yeah, you ask him a direct question, let him answer it.
Mehdi, you
But we all know that didn't come in good faith. You're literally just doing the thing of, well, did you serve? Thank you for your service.
spoke, now I speak. I ask, and I will ultimately would like to hear your answer to it. What values you represent? What civilization do you represent? Which country do you represent? Which religion do you represent?
Yeah, he actually represents humanity.
What do you stand for? What do you defend? I know what I do. I'm part of a democracy in the Middle East, and I stand for a military that defends its population against some of the most vile terrorists in the world, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranian propped-up terrorists. And I am happy and proud to be part of that organization, as I've been over many years. And if you and I were race car drivers, Mehdi, and each of us had a patch sewn onto our little uniforms that indicated who gives us money and who sponsors us, I would have one patch of my country and I would have one patch of my employer. That would be it. How many patches would you have? How big would the Qatari patch be on your clothes? And how big would foreign investment in whatever it is that you're doing and whatever it is that you're representing, how much would that be of what you do? Because you place yourself as if you are above and as if you are entitled to criticize everything that Israel does. And I ask, what are your motives and who pays for what you do?
So it's a very simple answer, as I told Jonathan Levine of the New York Post. And I love this new talking point, Piers. It's got around the right-wing media and the pro-Israel people. I run a company called Zeteo. People can check it out, zeteo.com. It's a great media organization.
Oh, that's his company. Oh, man.
Very good press from the Washington Post.
All right, yeah. Not only am I going to subscribe,
I'm an American. You asked the question. I know you can't handle brown people, being part of the West. I'm an American. I'm a Brit. I was born in the UK. I'm now an American taxpayer. And I'm very concerned with American taxes going towards the funding of a genocide in Gaza, going towards the killing of a 19-year-old guy who's in an IV in a hospital bed, going towards the killing of children in a school, going towards the killing of 23 people from one family in Lebanon Monday. In northern Lebanon, 23 people bombed by your military, 2 babies killed, Jonathan. That is what you stand for. You serve the IDF, the Israeli military, which, as I say, is being investigated at the ICJ, and the ICC. You serve a military that has been credibly accused by the United Nations just last week by Israeli media, which showed videos of mass rape of Palestinian detainees. The New York Times
he stands behind it.
Week reported.
Make no mistake, this guy, it's not like, I don't like doing that thing where, like, because you could always say that to an American soldier. It's like you fought alongside some horrendous people that committed war crimes, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but that what? No, but
that your military
this is
sent
tenable.
children, Palestinian children, as human shields into booby-trapped tunnels and buildings. Is that what you did, Jonathan? Can you tell us today? Did you ever send a Palestinian child as a human shield into a tunnel? Because the New York Times is saying your military did that. The World Food Programme is saying your military is starving the people of northern Gaza. Did you starve people when you were in the military, Jonathan? What do you stand for? Starvation, mass rape, ethnic cleansing, genocide? Every human rights group in the world says your military is an abuser of human rights. I don't know how many human rights you yourself have personally abused. I don't know if you turned a blind eye to rape on your custody. I don't know if you killed children at at point-blank range like Israeli snipers did to people carrying white flags. You can tell us today how many people you've killed or how many people you've tortured. I'll be all day.
Listen, Mehdi, sometimes enough is enough, and your level of vitriol
we saw a woman with a white flag.
Jonathan,
we've seen what
Mehdi,
Piers has seen people.
No. Like, let Mehdi finish, because he's bringing up some really, really good points, specifically about the fact that, yeah, this has been seen all over the world. We have seen these videos. The rest of the world is saying, hey, guys, chill the F out. And you guys are just like, nope. No chill.
All right, you've asked questions, Mehdi. Let him
We've
respond.
seen people gunned down with white flags.
All right, Mehdi, let him respond.
It's all
What
documented.
you are saying, your list of false allegations and your list of nonsense that you are spewing out,
everything
of
true.
Unfounded things, that the fact that someone wrote it doesn't make it true. All of these things that you say
we saw people with white flags
gunned
down in front of our eyes.
By someone,
Jonathan,
by
Piers has seen it, and I've seen it, and everyone watching the show has
all
seen
of what
I'm sorry, dude. Video. Wow, now they're trying to gaslight us into being like, oh, that video that you saw, well, that wasn't real. Was it AI?
you are saying is slanted and biased. And, I read parts of your
Oh, and you're not?
book, and I know exactly what you're
We
doing.
watched it, Jonathan.
What you're doing is trying to use.
Thank you for reading the book. It's called Win Every
Argument,
and you're losing.
Yes, yeah. Well, let other people be the judge of that.
Piers can tell us. Piers can tell us.
But what I can
Piers,
say,
have you watched unarmed people gunned down by the IDF? Piers, why don't you jump in as a moderator and clarify who's telling the truth?
Mehdi, I can say
Actually, I mean, if Piers did have like a semblance of a spine, he would just admit, like, yeah.
categorically, Mehdi, that under the circumstances that Israel finds itself under, I cannot think of any military that would behave in a more humane way. And I say that in 100% sincerity, without blinking.
The International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor disagrees with you,
and I will
Jonathan.
continue to say it, Mehdi, and I will continue.
Which is kind of weird because you know for a fact that they would bring up that same exact criminal court if this was the shoe was on the other foot with Iran. You know it.
Whatever makes you feel
Despite
good.
for Hamas and Hezbollah and Iranian apologists like yourself, and I will continue to say it and know that I stand on firm ground.
No. And this is why I do harp on the people that are like, it's not just free Palestine, that they support, like when I have had this actually like said to me like blatantly where in the comments thread there was a guy that's just like, I do support Hamas, I do support all this, I do support, like, it's like, okay, well, guess what? You suck too. You're just as bad as like the rest of them. But like, that's my point was because of that guy and the extremists. That's what this guy is like. He's using them as the ammo, like, and that's where I'm like, no, you got to tamp that down on your own side. You got to be like, no, this guy does not represent us.
Israel perfect? Do we never make mistakes?
How am I
Definitely not. Israel.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
you just said.
But that's calling somebody like that an Iran, like calling me an Iranian apologist when I'm blatantly not. It's kind of like, no, I just don't want to see the scale of death and destruction that you guys are. You guys are carrying out, especially the fact that you're doing it on citizens.
That Israel was the one that attacked Iran when Iran was minding its own business, which is absolutely
don't care
ludicrous.
about your feelings, Jonathan. April
Exactly.
2024,
You're the
Israel
one
did
who's
bomb
trying to
an
play
Iranian
on
consulate in
feelings.
Syria.
Mehdi,
You know what sucks as an atheist? Just in my opinion, none of these guys are ever going to get retribution for any of this.
you are the
I'm
one
just saying
who's
facts.
only trying to
Did
play
Israel
on
attack?
feelings and on sad stories.
I mean,
You
I
don't
could give
respond to
you.
Let's put it this way. If God does exist, I don't think that anybody's going, especially on that side.
Facts.
Dozens
Appears and is
of
shown in
horrible.
You know, here's
I
what I
will.
think, guys.
If
I
you
think
stop interrupting, I will.
this was working very powerfully when you give each other the chance to respond to each other. Okay, you both feel very strongly
Okay, so
about
let's
it.
do that from now.
You both have passionate
Okay,
views.
let's
I
do that
understand
from
that.
now.
You disagree with each other. I think for the audience at home watching, if you talk over each other, we lose it.
Well, Jonathan can't stop being racist.
Well,
We used to
Jonathan,
be ad
yeah.
hominem. Jonathan
So
can't stop
I
being
Mehdi, hang
racist.
on, Mehdi.
Can't stop being racist.
Let Jonathan
yeah.
finish his.
Let
Jonathan
me
finish,
talk.
and then let you respond.
Jonathan, keep
finish
being
your
racist.
But I've acknowledged
So
the
I think that what you've said is a laundry list of some of the low-hanging fruit and the concoctions that have been made up against Israel. Some of it may have a kernel of truth, and there may have been 10 soldiers who did something, and there may have been other soldiers who did something else that was wrong and that they shouldn't do. Is it common practice? No. Is it something that is sanctioned by the IDF? No. You tell us the sad story of the Palestinian who was unfortunately killed in the Israeli strike, or as a by-result of an Israeli strike in
That's not just one, man. We can go back to October 8th, and there are scores.
Deir al-Balakh.
That's why everybody's been reacting the way that they have. You think that the left is just losing their minds because of just one person?
Yesterday, he was killed not because he was a target. He was killed because Hamas ammunitions that were stored by Hamas in close proximity to that location exploded. The IDF fired 2 small bombs at that location, and they wouldn't have exploded and caused that kind of fire had it not been for.
That's so convenient that you guys also just, you never F up. It's never your fault. Even if you guys admit to bombing a place, you're like, we didn't kill that civilian. It was the stored munitions, even though there's absolutely like no way of really telling that. Like, how are you going to differentiate the shrapnel blast from what the bomb that you sent to a bomb that he may have been near? I mean,
Hamas weapons
allegedly from you.
there. If you care about Palestinian civilians, and as a human being, I was sad to see. I saw his video before. He looked like a very nice and decent human being, and it's sad that he and his family were killed. I saw the movie of burning people. It hurt me as a human being as well, and I wouldn't want to see it again, and I wouldn't want that to be reality in Gaza. But the reason that happened isn't because the IDF is fighting there. It's because Hamas is storing weapons there, and they're abusing humanitarian facilities, and they're using schools and mosques and whatever is left of hospitals in order to fight from. And then the IDF targets where the Hamas is fighting from. And unfortunately, people have gotten wounded. I regret that. I know for certain that wasn't the intention of the IDF.
Yet somehow, some way, even when the U.S. went for Osama bin Laden, we didn't bomb a entire city block.
It's a very sad and regrettable side effect of that.
And you guys are supposed to be like the myth of the IDF being like the most well trained, the elite of elites.
Happen. And I'm sure that the IDF will be extra careful in the next time that they attack. But it doesn't make it deliberate. But I think it's hypocritical of you, and I will finish. I think it's hypocritical of you, Mehdi, that you don't speak about the fact that why are they there in the beginning? Why are there ammunition stored in a hospital? Why is Hamas using hospitals to fight? Isn't that something that should be criticized?
And hot take, if indeed that is happening, which I mean, I've tried to do an objective look as much as I can. It does seem that the same humanitarian reports are actually saying that yes, there are Hamas combatants in certain zones, and yeah, like, so that is on them. And I'm sorry, I know, hot take, spicy take, that yeah, it's up to them to make sure that like there is none of that going on. But that's also why it's so hard to take them at their freaking word, because they bomb everybody so unilaterally that it's like, how? Like, you've muddied the water so much that there's no way to even do that investigation. So, you know, in a perfect world, we would just be like, hey, maybe don't support them and move away. You know, the way that they were always saying, like, hey, we gave them fair warning. But it's just like, nah, sorry, man. I'm not buying what you're selling.
Even by a highfalutin person like you?
Okay, Mehdi.
Highfalutin.
Your response.
The fuck?
So first of all, that's false. Even the Israeli military hasn't claimed it was ammunition. There's a debate about what the secondary explosions caused. It could have been the gas cylinders that people were using. But the issue is you're bombing areas of tents and hospitals. You've bombed refugee camps, as Piers pointed out. You've bombed schools, as I've pointed out, and you've dodged. You bombed a Lebanese Christian town and killed 23 people from one family, including 2 babies. You've bombed UN peacekeeping soldiers from Ireland and Italy, who are not Hamas or Hezbollah either. Israel is bombing people deliberately. We don't need your word for that. We've seen hundreds.
Yes, and they're doing it with like you want to talk about overkill? It's like 2,000 kiloton bombs.
Of TikToks, including my company, Zateo, that you happily mentioned earlier, put out an entire documentary interviewing Israeli soldiers and showing the TikTok of them bragging about their violence inside of Gaza and now Lebanon. You talk about low-hanging fruit. Let's just be clear here on the facts, since people are not going to get the facts, because as you've read my book, you know there's a tactic called gish galloping, which is what you just did, which is to talk over all the facts without engaging with them. Here are the facts that people can go look up for themselves. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the UN Human Rights Office, UNICEF, UNHCR, Save the Children, World Food Programme, WHO.
Pierce doesn't like facts. This is the only time that you see Pierce start to get a little nervous, because he's like, oh, but I love the Gish Gallop. The Gish Gallop is what gets the clicks.
Joe, Doctors Without Borders, I can keep going, Refugees International, International Rescue, they all, Care International, Christian Aid, Physicians for Human Rights, they all say the Israeli military is to blame for the casualties, for the killing of innocent people, for not giving warnings, for bombing civilian targets, and for starving the people of northern Gaza. Right now, Save the Children say that northern Gaza looks like the depths of hell. The World Food Programme says no food has been allowed in by your government and your military since the start of October. And by the way, one last point. You mentioned, oh, maybe 10 soldiers did this, 10 soldiers did that. Actually, according to the UN, this stuff is systematic. And I would ask you asked me who my investors are. I'll ask you. You were in the Israeli military. You proudly said you were competent.
Yeah, there it is. Turn it around, baby.
Someone asked you, were you involved in the things the Israeli
fair play.
military is being accused of by the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor, by human rights groups, intentional killing of civilians, starving of civilians, the use of rape and sexual violence against detainees, using Palestinian children as human shields, as the New York Times reported this week? Did you do any of that when you were in your service, Jonathan Conricus?
None of that is correct. None of that is correct, and I will gladly address.
All correct. The issue is, did you do it?
Of course, you know very well that we don't have time to go into a serious discussion of each and every of those flat allegations that you're rattling off, as if you say them.
Well, then go on one. Just focus on one and then debunk that one, and then you could just apply it to the others. But what did he just call that? The Gish Gallop? You're already on your horse. Let's go.
Fast. It makes it true, and as if you wave a few names of questionable organizations, it makes it true.
Very slow.
No.
Hey, keep it TOS, Mehdi.
No. Mehdi, I didn't interrupt. Let's keep it that way. I really refrain from interrupting. Let's keep it that way. It makes for better discussion.
Quit focusing on the interrupting thing. Like now that's all you're doing is now you're using that to avoid making your point.
Even though I think you said many things that are horrible, and you rattled off lots of names of organizations that, frankly, most people around the world, many people around the world, have lost their faith in, think are uncredible. You mentioned organizations that have been shown that they are full.
So any organization that has a negative opinion about Israel is they've lost their way and that nobody like trusts them anymore. Yeah, convenient. Everything is so convenient for you guys. God, I'm so sick of this. I am so sick of right-wing framing and how we just allow it to just to permeate our society. It is disgusting.
BDS supporters and Israel haters that have 2 jobs in BDS organizations and in these so-called humanitarian organizations. But you know what? Let's not go the easy way. Let's say I take you up on each and every one of those points, and I will say very clearly, whenever the IDF finds out wrongdoing, it takes measures against the people who have done wrong. And it's a very challenging thing to do when a country is fighting for its very existence.
He just said it's systematic. What's the issue there?
On at least 7 fronts, when its soldiers are being forced to fight for more than a year in order to defend their homes and their families, and then to simultaneously have these soldiers called in for disciplinary procedures and to be investigated while we are fighting. That isn't an easy thing to do, but yet the IDF does it. Not because the likes of you or others matter, but because this is who we are as a people who want to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and continue fighting the day after this end. And we will end this war. This war will eventually end.
Jonathan, let me ask you a question. Yes, I want to try and just move to a different sort of theme with this. How does all this end? I mean, what is Israel's plan for the end game here? Because to many people, it looks like you're just going to war with everyone now in the region. It could escalate massively. And if you replicate what you've done in Gaza with what you now do in, say, the Lebanon, where does that leave everybody? I mean, most of Gaza's been...
Eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. I mean, this is... What's that book?
Level. Tens of thousands of innocent people killed in the process of going after Hamas. If this is replicated in anything like this scale in Lebanon, you've got vast areas just destroyed. What happens afterwards? And why would you assume that this tactic of going so aggressively after Hamas and Hezbollah in civilian areas is not just going to fuel the ideology that led to them...
create more terrorists. You know, we even as Americans, we kind of figured that one out. We're like, we're kind of creating the next wave here. Base take from peers.
Rising up in the way that they did in the first place.
Yeah. Well, you know, going after an enemy aggressively, that's what war is. When you're attacked in your home, when your women are slaughtered, when babies are killed, when women are raped. And
no. So you're just like, we're going to throw away any of like the rules of engagement and just go, nope, we get to go full barbarism because that's what happened to us.
Your civilians are burnt alive and people are taken hostage. That's called a declaration of war, and you fight that. You don't fight it by being nice, and you don't fight it by being gentle. You do fight it according to the laws.
And you're not following those laws. You're bombing civilian infrastructure, and you're doing it under the guise that they have enemy combatants in that infrastructure. It has literally been the main way that you've skated through this, but that's the bitch of having the year go by is when all of these, organizations that you conveniently just throw to the side and go, oh, nobody trusts them. The whole world's anti-Semitic. No. That's complete horse crap, and you know it.
Of armed conflict, and you try to adhere to those criteria. By and large, I think that Israel is succeeding. Sure, there have been mistakes, and sure, there are things that weren't 100% right, but I think that by and large, and that's, by the way, many British and American officers have attested to that as well. Those have been able to see the battlefield. But where does this go from here? Sadly, and I live here, and my kids will serve in the military, and I will probably do more reserves. I think that we're in for a long battle. I think that we're in for more fighting. I look around and I listen. I try to listen, and I speak Arabic, and I try to listen to the sounds and people that are willing to say and acknowledge that the Jews have a right to live and exist here. I try to hear those voices amongst Palestinians, Arabs, Syrians, Lebanese, and others in the region. And sadly, I don't hear them enough. And I regret to say this.
Yeah, because they're being snuffed out by bombs.
But I think that what is in store sadly for Israel, and I would want for that to be totally different. I would want for us to focus on economy and research and culture and to do many beautiful things that we do in Israel, and we do them very well, much to the displeasure of our enemies, but nevertheless we do them. And I would want for us to focus on that. But
you want to talk about being antagonistic? What the hell is with you, dude? You really are just kind of an ass.
Sadly, we're being forced to defend ourselves, and we weren't doing anything that is similar.
All right, and it looks like you were waiting for you were looking for any reason to go full barbarism. Just by your mindset, I am already seeing it where it's no, and I kind of get it where people are like, yeah, you know what, the IDF really is just an extension of Netanyahu because it's all the same talking points, it's all the same BS.
To what's going on now on the 6th of October.
Okay.
And just to end that, I will say that, just one sentence, Piers. The next step is indeed Iran. And I think that we will have a conversation in a few months from now, maybe 4 or 5 months, where you can ask this question again after Israel will directly engage the Islamic Republic of Iran and start to shift the tide in the region. We won't have Iran funding and amassing these terrorist organizations against us. That will be the beginning of a much quieter and more peaceful Middle East.
Okay, Mehdi, your response.
Yeah, I've got a lot to respond because a lot was said. Let me just deal with the first point, this nonsense about October the 6th. It was all peaceful. Gazans were being killed on October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. West Bankers were being killed on October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. It's a complete lie that there was some kind of peace or quiet in the neighborhood. Maybe in Israel there was, but people were still bearing the brunt of occupation violence in both the West Bank and Gaza. It's a total and utter lie to suggest otherwise. It's also interesting that Jonathan responded to your question, Piers, by talking about how, and I think I'm quoting him correctly, that when you come into our homes and you kill our civilians and you rape our women and you set us on fire, that is a declaration of war. Which is ironic because he's just described everything that Israel has done in Gaza and the West Bank, both in recent weeks and months and over the years.
Project much?
Years of occupation. So how come it's not a declaration of war for Palestinians when Israel does it to the Palestinians? It's only one-way traffic. Only one side has a right to defend itself, right? Not the other side. Number two, I would just say, he talked again about kind of, oh, there were too many names and I speak too fast. Let me just be clear. I can speak very, very slowly. One issue, rape. He lies and tells your viewers that Israeli soldiers are held to account. That's not true. Anyone can go on Google right now and look at the number of Israeli soldiers, the percentage who are actually indicted or charged with any crimes. It's 98, 99% of Israeli soldiers are never charged with any crimes. That's from B'Tselem, that's from Israeli human rights groups. I'm sure Jonathan will call them anti-Semites as well. And when we look at one single instance of rape in detention, which was well documented by the Israeli media and by human rights groups and actual Palestinian eyewitnesses, what happened? The Israeli military police peers went to the base to try and arrest the soldiers. The soldiers ganged together, attacked the military police, and then the parliament had a debate about whether rape should be legal or not, whether it's legal to rape Palestinian detainees. And now we're learning this week, Piers, that the military police officers who were assaulted by the soldiers who were the buddies of the rapists, are too scared to give testimony against their soldiers.
Okay, Mehdi, I don't disagree with you.
I don't know, hold on, Piers.
No, I want to ask
that
you
is
one
very
question,
important that we talk about accountability.
I know, I've got one
I will answer
supplementary
your question, but I'm going to finish my
point.
But
on the issue of rape.
I'll come.
Okay, on that one issue of rape, though, what I haven't heard you mention at all is the hideous sexual abuse, including rape, of so many innocent women.
Because we all condemn that.
On October the 7th. Well, no, but I'm asking you now, you haven't mentioned it, and Jonathan's raised that several times. You only seem fixated.
Why would I? Because
you're fixated with Israeli soldiers.
No, I understand, but like to put him on the back foot, like he is, like number one, Piers is expecting too much. However, it would make Mehdi's argument a little bit easier if he just goes, "I condemn, are all around." But
right. What about?
Hold on.
Are we actually allowed to say this on YouTube now?
What about the rape against Israelis?
Piers, if you want to,
so confused.
If you want to do a debate like that, invite Jonathan Conricus and invite a Hamas spokesperson. I'm sorry, I'm not a spokesman for Hamas. I've condemned Hamas. Unlike Jonathan, I condemn people who engage in human rights abuses. Hold on. Well, I've done it. Well, maybe you should pay attention, Jonathan. Instead of reading my book, check everything I've said on the conflict. I was condemning Hamas decades ago, and I've been attacked by certain people for condemning Hamas. Can I finish a point? You gave a long speech.
Yeah,
so far, you and Piers have both interrupted me.
You can.
I'm going to answer this point. If you want to have a Hamas spokesman,
yeah, it is. I mean, they're doing the Gish Gallop tactic on a very small scale just by interrupting Mehdi to get him off his game. Where, like, dude, what's the point of having these if you're only going to, like, that's what I don't like about Piers, is he obviously sides with one side. That's my problem with him. So anytime that they start, like, he senses that the tides are turning a little bit and that his buddy is on the defensive, all of a sudden he's like, okay, time for me to step in.
Have a Hamas spokesman. I did an entire show. We keep mentioning Zateo. I'm loving the plugs, Piers. Appreciate you. On Zateo, people can go and watch an entire show I did with Bassem Youssef, another one of your guys, where I talked about on that show about how the UN report talked about gender and sexual violence on October the 7th, how that needs to be prosecuted, how it needs to be investigated. You know what the UN said? They said, we haven't been able to confirm instances of rape, but we want to, but the Israelis are blocking us from interviewing witnesses and coming into Israel. So maybe Jonathan should get his government to allow UN investigators to finish the job, because I believe all rapists should be held to account. Jonathan doesn't. He hasn't said a word. I brought it up several times. He said, oh, it's a few men here and there. No. They're not being prosecuted. The Israeli parliament defended them. The Israeli media had debates about whether rape should be legalized. That is the military he's part of. He earlier, in a very racist way, suggested, I have no civilization, no country, no loyalty except to Qatar and Iran. I'm a British American of Indian descent. I have nothing to do with Iran or Qatar. I would say this.
Oops. Your racism showed.
That Jonathan needs to deal with those human rights abuses. And finally, the last point I'll make,
But brown man say Palestinians good. He anti-Semite.
Going on about, oh, these groups are not taken seriously. Jonathan Conricus, Piers, wants you and your viewers to disbelieve Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, UNICEF, UNHCR, Refugees International, International Rescue, Christian Aid. Disbelieve all those groups. Disbelieve the World Food Programme run by Cindy McCain, the late widow of John McCain. Disbelieve all of them and believe the Israeli military, which he was a spokesman for.
That's it. Yep. Oh, Mehdi, cook.
Caught lying about beheaded babies, about calendars in the bottom of hospitals, about Lebanese documentaries, the number of the Israeli military lies that they've had to own up to. It's a joke. No one trusts anything Jonathan's saying.
All right, Jonathan, final word to you.
Yeah, actually, many people do trust what I and my peers say, and many people, I think, listen to the kind of thing, the kind of goods that you peddle, Mehdi. And the goods that you peddle are Israel hatred. Sometimes it's more sophisticated and more well-founded. Sometimes it's very easy to.
Yeah, it's human rights abuses, dude. No, it's easy to hate Israel when they do this shit, where it's like, oh, we're gonna commit all these human atrocities or these human rights atrocities, and we're just gonna gaslight anybody that disagrees with it and just go, nope, you anti-Semite because you disagree.
To dismantle. And it's very clear where you stand. I asked you before, and you conveniently didn't answer. What is it that you stand for? What do you represent? What
human
are
rights,
the values that
dignity,
you stand for?
Human rights, dignity.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's human rights and dignity and equality, then I suggest that you stand equally and speak about how they're violated by the oppressive Iranian regime against the Iranian people. Speak about what the Syrian dictator does against his.
He actually has. Like, he's gone very hard after Iran.
I've criticized
Speak
Qatar.
about
Israel.
how Hamas brutalizes 2 million Gazans and how Hezbollah deals with dissenters in Lebanon.
You won't
the
criticize
problem
Israel.
with what you're
The only
saying,
person here,
the
Jonathan,
problem
who
with
won't
what you're
criticize their
doing,
side is you.
Mehdi, the problem with what you are doing, Mehdi, is that it's very easy to listen to you less. Even though you speak eloquently and you have good sources, it's easy to listen to you less and believe to you less because it's very clear what you're motivated by. You are not
Again, projection much?
something that is motivated by a true care for human beings. You care about human beings if
That's
the
why I
ones who
support
cause
Israeli
them
innocent lives as
injustice
well.
or something else
Which your
are
government is engaged
Israelis. If it's Palestinians killed by Palestinians,
Actually,
then
Jonathan,
that's a non-story.
if I had my
it's
way,
Hamas
Israelis
that
wouldn't be
oppresses
dying right now.
Palestinians, you don't
Israelis
care.
are dying right now because of your government.
If it's suffering anywhere
Israelis
else,
died.
and if it cannot
Israelis
be
are dying
pinned on
because of your
Israel,
government.
even
I don't
by
want
your
Israelis to
warped
die.
logic,
I don't
then
want
you
anyone
don't
to
care
die.
about it.
You
You
do.
only care about it if
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, like, Mehdi's position is peace, trying to bring peace to that whole region and not killing in the name of whatever land grab or God or whoever the hell. He's just saying, no, stop killing. But this guy is doing all of his justifications to maintain his position on killing and dehumanizing. No, this one is like, this is a pretty easy one to kind of take away.
If it's related to Israel and if it can serve anti-Israeli propaganda. And that undermines your credibility. You speak about my credibility. I'm
Saudi
very
Arabia.
easy and open, and it's very clear.
Honestly, no. The only person that's damaging your credibility is you, dude. Like, you are the biggest IDF shill that I have ever seen. The fact that you couldn't even give a substantive criticism of your own military kind of shows that he's right. You're just a shill.
Jonathan,
I stand for my country and I'm happy to defend it. But
Can you
what you
criticize
stand
Israel?
for is just attacking Israel. Of course I can criticize, and I even do it on my Twitter. I've said things about my prime minister, and I've said things about my military. Of course I have.
You couldn't even criticize mass rape by your fellow soldiers.
Listen, there hasn't been mass rape. It's such a
Shameful,
It's such a
Jonathan.
nonsense talking point.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
It's such a nonsense talking point, so I won't even.
So the UN's lying, the New York Times is lying,
It is
CNN is lying.
The UN isn't saying it.
Everyone's
the UN
lying,
isn't saying it. The
except
fact
you
that you
and Israel
mentioned an
military.
organization name
Actually,
doesn't
the
make
UN
it
commission of
true.
inquiry last week.
Chaps, we're
UN
going
commission of inquiry.
to call a timeout. because
Everyone can Google it, Jonathan, and see how much you
We've
like.
descended into talking over each other. Look, it's been, broadly speaking, it's been a very good debate between two people who care very passionately and have obviously very different views about this. I learned a lot listening to both of you. I'm glad you came together to debate it. I know you haven't done that before. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I mean, if you could take away anything from what Israeli Lou Ferrigno was saying, honestly, like, the one thing that I was like, yeah, okay, like, if Mehdi was kind of like more critical about the human shields aspect of things, or like not even the human shield thing. I'm sorry, getting a little conflated there. The whole using the human shields as, like, you know, the hospitals, all that kind of stuff, but you know, that's that's the easiest take to have, where it's like, yeah, that's wrong. Like that, and on top of it, yes, like if I had my way, I'd make sure that it's like, hey guys, you might want to, you know, talk that one amongst yourselves, but also, you know, like, for him to bring up all of those groups that are unilaterally saying, "Hey, you guys are committing genocide. You guys are committing, human rights atrocities like all over this war." And for this guy to just be like, "Nobody trusts them. They only trust the IDF." It's absolutely disgusting. Like that was gross. As I said, like I was trying to be charitable with the Mehdi take, but even like, nah, this one was very clear cut. Who was in the right, who was essentially giving us a history lesson and teaching us the reality of the conflict as opposed to the propaganda of the conflict. So I think that I at least was, me personally, I was more awoken, I don't know, to the fact that, the IDF really will go to any lengths to just call anybody an anti-Semite that is, in opposition to them. So pretty gross, but Mehdi nailed it though. I'm so happy that Piers knows what to do. Just keep bringing him on, man. Like he is a ratings goldmine. So. But with that being said, I got some more Mehdi Hasan content. Actually, got a great video where he debated a Trump lackey on Al Jazeera. So definitely check that out. It is fantastic. So, but I will actually, sorry, almost skipped a portion there. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. I really appreciate you guys checking out my content, and I'll see you in the next one.